Hi JD, how are you doing? It's great to have you on the podcast.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, awesome. So JD, as you might be aware, this is the Big Unlock podcast, which was started by the founder of Demo Consulting, Paddy Padmanabhan. So it is in season six, and I think we are now north of 160 episodes.
Great.
So we have come a long way since this, Big Unlock podcast started. So I'm Rohit Mahajan. I'm the managing partner and CEO for Big Rio and Demo Consulting. Super excited to have you as our guest here on the podcast and looking forward to diving into some topics. Would you like to please start with an intro?
Sure thing. JD Whitlock. I am Chief Information Officer at Dayton Children's, a small pediatric health system in Southwest Ohio. And I have a pretty long career in healthcare IT, 30 years now in healthcare. I'm retired Air Force. I was a healthcare administrator in the Air Force. I've also spent some time in larger adult private sector systems, Bon Secours Mercy Health, where I did a lot of data and analytics. And now, of course, as CIO, I do a little bit of everything, IT at Dayton Children's.
That's great to know, JD. So, couple of questions, just curious questions. What attracted you from being in the military and in the Air Force and Navy and then on to healthcare track, which you have, kind of like stayed for a long time in that swim lane now, and where are you headed? So that's one part of the question. And second is, please tell us a little bit more about your health system.
Yeah, sure thing. So you mentioned Navy and Air Force. So yes, I did start out 7 years in the Navy. I was doing not healthcare in the Navy. I was doing Navy things, driving ships around. But then I got a master's in healthcare administration, started doing healthcare administration in the Air Force. So really, the
Okay,
job that I had in the Air Force, and the majority of that was in healthcare IT management.
great.
So really, towards the end of my Air Force career, I was doing very similar things to what I do today.
Understand.
Really, yeah,
Understand.
yeah. A
Great.
little bit more on Dayton Children's. We're on Epic, so we're,
Mm-hmm.
we're we're big enough to be on Epic and Workday, which I think probably factors into some of the things we're going to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But then we're small
Mm-hmm.
compared to most health systems. Yeah,
I see.
so what does that look like? Well, it means we have to do a lot of the same things that bigger health systems have to do,
Mm.
but it's sometimes challenging to have the resources, people and dollars,
Yes.
to get all of those things done, right? But
Right.
of course, you bring your kid to your sick or injured kid to be seen at Dayton Children's, and you have obviously the same expectations for quality of care, experience of care, uh,
Mm-hmm.
that a larger Children's Hospital, Cincinnati Children's, Nationwide Children's in Columbus,
Mm-hmm.
that you would get from them, or
Mm.
anyplace else. So
Yes.
that's sometimes a challenge is to keep up with larger health systems with fewer resources.
I see. I see. And increasingly difficult environment lies ahead. So I'm sure there are more challenges on the way. And I'm sure the leadership is already thinking about how to navigate those challenges, especially, and we'll get to that. No podcast is complete without AI. And,
Right.
we'll talk about it in just a moment. But before that, what I would like to ask you is about, you mentioned that you are, on Epic and Workday. So please tell us a little bit more about how that drives your innovation, or let's say the consumerism from the digital front door perspective, and any initiatives like that.
Sure thing. So in both cases, we spend a lot of money for the care and feeding of those platforms.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, both in dollars to the vendor and in terms of all the labor that we need to put into them. That's
Mm-hmm.
the bad news. The good news is we have the best in class platforms in both cases,
Yeah.
and we can do a lot of innovation just by optimizing within these platforms, including
Mm-hmm.
some of the generative AI um, features that both vendors are doing a very nice job just implementing into their platforms. And so So that's very exciting. We're early-ish stage
I
with some
see.
of that. But the point is, it's a lot easier to just, of course, implement these features from within the platform than try to
Yeah.
bolt
Yeah.
on new things. In
Absolutely.
some cases, we'll be bolting on new things like ambient and maybe some autonomous coding and some other things.
Right. Right.
And I'm not saying we won't do that at all, but probably, I don't know, 90% of what we would do the generative AI would just be from Epic Workday. I should probably also throw Microsoft in the mix there. We're a Microsoft shop, so
I
we'll,
see. I
of course,
see.
be using some Microsoft tools also.
Yeah. Yeah. So could you talk to us, JD, about some of the generative AI use cases that you perhaps are, already looked at or kind of looking at, or might be on the roadmap of these vendor partners that you are, kind of going to be adopting?
Sure. Well, the one obvious one is ambient. Most health
Mhm.
systems are if not fully in production, at least piloting or about to pilot something with ambient. I think
Yes.
I think that very soon here, having some ambient solution will be an expectation from providers, and
Yeah.
health systems may have difficulty recruiting new providers. And as of course, as we have more challenges with physician shortages,
Yeah.
that's going to be a challenge. One dynamic at Dayton Children's is, of course, we need to successfully hire pediatric specialists, and
Yeah.
who typically are getting out of their pediatric specialty fellowships at large academic medical centers.
Hmm.
To convince them why they should move to Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah.
And so we can't be at a competitive disadvantage, to some of the larger facilities if we are, for example, not using ambience.
Right.
So we like to be fast followers. We're probably not going to be the first to do
Mhm.
things. We'll leave that to the academic medical centers and
Mhm.
and some of the truly new things that they're developing, both on the clinical side and also on the digital health side.
Mhm.
Um, and one of the nice things about being an Epic customer, of course, is there's such wonderful collaboration between the whole Epic community.
Yeah.
And if you do something innovative in your Epic build, you go to the Epic conference, you present it, and other people can use that. And then,
That's wonderful.
depending on what it is, sometimes Epic will just build that into the next version of Epic. So an awful lot of that goes on all the time.
Right.
And Epic is rolling out so many new features so fast, it's actually difficult just to keep up with all the new features that are coming from Epic. So.
That's true. So it's a large system, JD. So how do you separate the wheat from the chaff? That is something that we were kind of hitting upon just before we started the podcast. So what are some of your thoughts on that? How do you kind of decide what is critical and core and what can be done later and perhaps doesn't need attention at this time?
Sure. So as a general concept, just good governance, right? And not chasing
Hmm.
after as we like to call them, the bright, shiny objects, even
Hmm.
before generative AI, right? You've
Hmm.
always had that problem, right?
Hmm.
Somebody went to a conference, they saw something that looked cool, and it may be cool, but there's not enough return on investments
Hmm.
to spend the dollars that we don't have on that thing.
Hmm.
And so
Yes.
we've had that challenge for a very long time. I would
Hmm.
say that generative AI has ramped that problem up a few notches just
Yes.
because there's so much hype around
Yeah.
generative AI. And you have to be careful there, both in the don't waste money, you don't have problem, and also some of the other additional considerations with generative AI that you did not always have for other things, like some of the ethical considerations, some
Hmm.
of the medical legal considerations. And so, yeah, we need to pay an awful lot of attention to that. Um, I try to stay up on all this, of course, and one thing that when I listen to very smart people that
Hmm.
spend their entire lives focused on generative AI, talking about is the bubble of investment in all this. And
Yes.
while two things can be true at the same time, One is that there's amazing science going on and amazing new capabilities
Mm,
that are advancing very quickly.
mm.
And also, it can be true that a lot of the investment money that's pouring into this are going to be bad investments because nobody's going to pay the gajillion dollars
Yeah,
for that thing that you built.
that's true.
So,
That's true.
so that's where you have to be very careful. Now, how do we handle that? Well, we handle that like we've always handled it, like we ask ourselves hard questions about return on investment.
Yes.
And sometimes we do things that have more soft ROI than hard ROI. Ambient's a great example of that.
Mm-hmm.
Reasonable people can disagree about the hard ROI there, but there's really no question about the soft ROI of keeping our providers happy. And
Yes.
you hear story after story about how all this really changed. I was about to retire early, and I really was burnout, and this has really really increased the joy of medicine for me. Pretty much every
Mm,
system that's implemented or is
mm.
implementing ambient, you get really dramatic stories like this
That's true.
from the providers. And so soft ROI is important too. You just can't buy everything out there
Yeah.
just because it has some soft ROI. You have to be very judicious.
Sure, sure. And we had touched upon, around using some new tools that are coming out for enabling coding. So
Yes.
what are some of your thoughts on some of these tools that are out there, JD?
Yes, and so this is an interesting space. This may be something that we do with additional vendors. We are about to go live next
Mm-hmm.
week, in fact, with
Mm-hmm.
Epic's professional billing. I believe it's called the PB Coding Assistant,
Mm-hmm.
and it's sort of some lighter weight
Mm-hmm.
AI tossed at professional billing, just make our,
Mm-hmm.
our PB billers and coders lives a little bit easier with some
Yeah.
tools we're getting from Epic. Um, then you have a spectrum of complexity of billing from PB to
Mm-hmm.
the hospital outpatient to
Mm-hmm.
inpatient. And as I understand the state of things, from smarter people than me that have been talking about this, you still on the inpatient side, you still have it so complex, the autonomous coding is not really ready for that. But for a lot of the hospital outpatients,
Right.
is that middle ground is a sweet spot where autonomous coding thoughtfully applied
Mm-hmm.
can really assist our coders and billers be more efficient. So
Right.
we are looking at some of those vendors and figuring out if that's going to be a good fit for us or not.
Right. That's cool to know. So being a smaller health system, like we just talked about, there's always challenges. So how do you go about things like, let's say, innovation, for example, or any other thoughts that you have around this, that how can smaller systems kind of keep up with the big ones and still deliver that quality of care which the patients are expecting?
Sure. So something else that a term that's commonly used in Epic, the Epic ecosystem
Mhm.
is imitate to innovate, right?
Yes.
And so, if you can get past the concept of not being proud about it and the fact that you're implementing
Mhm.
something that somebody else developed someplace else,
Yes.
then
Yes, of
really
course.
that's the answer is that
Right.
so we want to do we like to say we want to be fast followers. And
Yes.
so most people in IT are familiar with the Gartner's hype cycle and the
Yes.
peak of inflated expectations and the trough of disillusionment and the plateau
Of
of
course.
productivity, right? And so we'll let other people do the trough of disillusionment, right? And
Hmm.
we want to be there for the things that actually work other places.
Makes sense.
We're
Makes sense.
we're not just literally rolling the dice on, is something going to work? No, that
Yeah.
worked. This thing worked at another children's hospital. And the
Yes.
people that we know, because we have really good relationships with pretty much
Yeah.
know all the CIOs and CMIOs at the other children's hospitals. And if,
Yes.
we go to conferences and talk to each other and, oh, that new, generative AI feature from Epic worked wonderfully for us. And then the other
Right.
one didn't work as well because it's not a good match for pediatrics or
I
whatever,
see what
whatever
you
the
mean.
case
I see
may
what you
be.
mean.
So we
Right.
just talk to each other and then we had increased confidence. Nothing's ever
Yeah.
100%. Increased
Right.
confidence that that is going to be worth our effort to
Yeah.
implement.
Right. And JD, you've been at health systems which are not pediatric focused as well, right?
Yep.
So what's the difference? I'm just curious to know that in this world of pediatric children's hospitals, how are things different from outside world with other, health systems?
Yeah, sure thing. So some things are different with pediatrics.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, but it also just makes it's unfortunate. It's also just sort of makes sense the way that the world works.
Hmm.
When you have innovators out there and venture capital and resource
Hmm.
dollars going into doing something innovative, a lot of times those dollars just go to adult medicine because that's where more of the dollars are.
You're
And
right.
so pediatric is sometimes just the second fiddle.
Mm.
Occasionally, it's maybe Epic's rolling out a new feature and some new predictive algorithm, and it
Hmm.
works better for adult than pediatrics. That was true for the sepsis predictor.
Hmm. Hmm.
I remember one of a pediatric CMIO I was talking to about diving into the details about why that was. So we just
Yes.
have to be cautious about that.
Right.
In some case, I'm trying to think of other examples. Imaging, of course, with
Yeah.
now we're talking more predictive than generative AI.
Yes.
Although I guess some of these technically are generative AI, but there's a lot of, FDA approved, really efficacious new imaging technology powered by
Hmm.
AI. But I was talking to our radiologists about that, and when they're going to their radiologist
Hmm.
conferences and seeing all things, they're like, there really hasn't been much yet. There were a couple things that were bone age, I think, and one other that were
Hmm.
relevant for pediatrics. So sometimes you just have to wait
Yeah.
until thing. And then in other cases, there are people doing innovative things that are really targeted
Yeah.
at pediatrics. So we've been looking at a couple solutions that are really targeted at the NICU,
Yes.
both a more sort of a better parent experience.
Hmm. Hmm.
Your
Sure.
precious little new baby
Of
that's
course.
sometimes very tiny
Yeah.
is in the NICU, and
Yeah.
you have to learn a lot really quick and talk to the doctors and nurses and figure out what that all looks like,
Hmm.
and how can we make that experience better, and also how can we in some cases we are an accountable care organization. We want to make
Hmm.
sure that we are spending our dollars wisely,
Hmm.
and have these kids in the hospital when they need to be in the hospital, and sending them home when we can do that safely. And so, some solutions around, tube feeding and oxygen and some of the things where we actually can send these infants home maybe a little earlier than we otherwise could, with
I
some
see.
better remote patient monitoring and
Yes.
communication tools and all of that. So in some cases, there's true innovation going on that's very specific to pediatrics.
That's great to know. And again, just curious to know, JD, from you, you mentioned Workday also, other than
Yes.
Epic as one of your major systems.
Yep.
So, have you seen anything emerge from the Workday world or on their roadmap which you might be considering?
Yes, we were actually just looking at this yesterday in our
Hmm.
Workday executive governance meeting. We asked our account team to put together a nice little chart for us about all
Hmm.
of the generative AI features that Workday has. It was actually
Hmm.
There were a lot of features because it fit on one slide, but it was pretty small fonts, and then we
Okay.
color coded them by
Yeah.
things that we're licensed for and we're doing, things that we're licensed for and we're not yet doing, things that we
Okay.
could be doing but we're not licensed for. Right?
I see. I see.
How do we approach
Yeah. Yeah.
evolve?
That's a great way to look at it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And one significant difference between when it comes to AI between Workday and Epic,
Hmm.
Epic has this partnership with Microsoft, right?
Hmm.
And so they, since that's a very deep partnership and very effective partnership, but ultimately the generative AI
Hmm.
cloud compute that's going on there is
Hmm.
actually in Azure, right?
Yes.
And where our Epic is hosted on-prem, a lot of Epic customers are still for
On-prem.
using hosted on-prem.
Yes.
Workday is built modern cloud architecture, built from the ground up,
Yeah.
They don't have to partner with anybody else. It's just built into their platform.
I
Right. So
see. I
both
see.
vendors they're doing it completely different based
Yeah.
on the architecture of their systems.
Right.
So
So again, JD, again a curious question because I am just trying to build a picture in my mind. So let's say Epic and Workday are two major systems that are looks like very much on top of your mind. Which could be the other three? Are there any other, let's say, next level two or three systems that are kind of large like this, which also could be driving the AI roadmap or Gen AI roadmap?
sure. Well, obviously on the EHRs, did you mean other vendors in the same space, or did you mean other
Other
capabilities?
player, other not the other vendors in the same
Yeah.
space. I mean,
Okay.
a different space, like for different
Sure.
applications. I mean to ask within
Yeah.
your enterprise, yeah, within your, uh,
Yeah, sure
yeah.
thing. Well, yeah, for health systems, I mean, another, certainly very strategic uh,
Hmm.
area is your PACS vendor. And so,
Tax. Yes,
for
yes, of course.
modern PACS
Right,
vendors, you
right.
want them to be able to plug into all these AI features
Yes.
that are coming. In some cases, it can do that natively. Some cases,
Yeah.
there's some middleware there that plugs in
Hmm.
the AI features, but you really want to be able to add all that
Hmm.
AI capability as
Hmm.
easily as you can, right?
Right, right.
And then vendor neutral archives
Yes.
to get all the images in one place. We haven't always done a very good job at, if it was an image that the radiologist was reading,
Yeah.
went into the PACS. But there's a
Yeah.
lot of other images that a lot of other providers are ordering and reading, and sometimes
Hmm.
those get squirreled away
Hmm.
places that's not ideal for lots of reasons.
Hmm. Hmm.
But in particular, if you want to do AI on all these images, then you
Yes.
have to be
Yes.
in one place in your a better place in your architecture, which typically means a vendor neutral archive. So
Yes.
we went through
Hmm.
a I wouldn't consider it probably the most strategic acquisition that we've done since I've been here in 7 years, because when I got here, we were already on Epic, and
Hmm.
we actually were just starting with Workday. Uh,
Hmm.
but in the case of PACS, we were replacing old legacy PACS that we were not going to stick with that vendor. I won't say the name.
Hmm.
And I knew that we wanted a combination PACS and VNA that was going to be very future proof.
Hmm.
And so we wound up selecting Sectra, which is for a long time has been the
Hmm.
best in class PACS vendor. Uh,
Hmm.
and we've been pretty happy with them. And besides the fact, like I said a few minutes ago, there's not necessarily a whole lot of pediatric specific AI
Hmm.
tools available yet.
Yes.
We used to have pretty good confidence. We're doing well with, getting the other images into the VNA, like point of care ultrasound,
Hmm.
and these kinds of things that you
Hmm.
want to be doing. And so as these AI tools become available, we can easily implement them.
Right, right. And then you struck something in my mind about when you said vendor neutral archive, JD. So I'm just kind of turning the question a bit around. So to do AI, we all know that we need data, right? So and we need data engineering on top of it. And data is siloed, whether it is if it's in Epic, it's siloed in Epic. If it's in Workday, it's siloed in Workday, or let's say in PACS case, it's siloed in PACS.
Sure.
How does a enterprise like yours look at doing AI, which is not siloed like this, which is across, let's say, multiple systems that you're currently using, or perhaps even a broader question is across multiple functional areas, JD, because the business enterprise has so many other functional areas, right?
Sure. That's an interesting question. If we had more money and more time, and maybe if we're a big academic medical center and lots of research projects going on, we would be spending more on like a true enterprise data warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for that kind of thing, quite honestly, don't really need that at Dayton Children's. The vast majority of the reporting and
Hmm.
analytics we do for Epic just lives in the Epic environment.
Yes.
Now we are dabbling with Microsoft Fabric
I
because
see.
that's where Epic is headed anyways for their
Yes.
cloud, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we are starting to play around with that, and so we've been doing Power BI for a while. And yes, we for our enterprise scorecards for our leadership, we
Hmm.
bringing in some Epic data and some Workday data and some other data, right?
I see. I
And
see.
I'm putting
Yeah.
that together really just for executive scorecard
Makes
type of
sense.
things. I'm trying to think of other places we're matching together data. Oh, patient survey data. We take
Yes.
patient survey data from our
Yeah.
survey vendor, match that together with
You're right.
Epic data, and then do
Okay.
Power BI dashboards for that. So we can drill down on, we have a very high net promoter score, and the ladies
Hmm.
we're very proud of. And part of the reason for that is we've put some effort into the analytics around, hey, why are the
Hmm.
patients in the emergency department between these hours, not happy? And you
I see what you mean.
you
Right.
can't tell if you just look at the survey data by itself, but
Right.
mash it together with all the Epic data and start
Yes.
asking yourself what explains this. You can be
Sure.
better at implementing fixes for things.
Great. Great. So very, very thoughtful and very insightful, JD. Would like to ask you a little bit about, I know that you mentioned about that you do consulting services as well. So tell us a little bit more about some of your, most exciting engagements and what you like to do.
Sure.
Would love to
Yeah.
learn more
So
about that. Yeah.
yeah, I do a little consulting on the side after hours. I joke with my boss that it makes me a better CIO for Dayton Children because I talk to people. Maybe sometimes it's like an investment company that's trying to figure out if they're going to invest in a particular software solution. They want to talk to
Mhm.
people that are actually using the software
Mhm.
solution. So I tend to find out like who's raising money for what, when,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
sometimes people have a new idea about a product and they want to bounce it off somebody like me.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
I see things that are coming into the
Cool.
market
Yes.
and vendors that are you know
Mhm.
acquiring different tools and
Mhm.
putting together platforms and all this. And so
Awesome.
that's most of the work I do is just sort of that one-off sort of
Mhm.
uh, expertise because I've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah, and then I occasionally help on an ongoing basis health tech companies that just need a little
Mhm.
help with go-to-market strategy and
Right.
how to sell into health systems, that kind of a thing.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, JD, for sharing that. So since we are coming towards the close of the podcast, JD, any other, thoughts or any other things that you see coming in the future that you would like to share before we close it?
Let's see. We've already hit generative AI a
Yeah.
bunch. I guess another thought that I have it always comes down to good governance, right?
Yes.
And I talk to a lot of other CIOs, CMIOs who sometimes struggle with too many requests. How do we deal with all these
Hmm.
requests, right? And I do think something that's very important it's not really fun to talk about, but
Hmm.
acquisition policies and all
Hmm.
the governance policies.
Right.
And I think people are getting a lot of wrapped up with all the new generative AI stuff. Yes, you need to think hard about, as we talked about before, the ethical considerations, medical
Hmm.
legal considerations.
Hmm.
So you need to work that into your evaluation and procurement process.
Hmm.
But what I see a lot of people doing is like starting 17 new AI committees. Or like I
Hmm.
don't have time. Who has time to go to
It's a
a
lot.
board committee meeting? So I think it's better to just work those into your existing
Yeah.
governance structures and procurement policies. But you do have to have procurement policies with teeth. You can't just let everybody go buy any IT thing and then toss it over
Right.
the fence
Sure.
to IT, and then IT we can't do the core things that we're supposed to be doing because we're
Yes.
trying to plug in new things that somebody bought that may not actually fit into our architecture.
Understand. Understand. Thank you, JD. This has been a very good conversation. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for
And
having me.
yeah, hoping to continue it as well in the future.